NBA's hidden gem, from thug to superstar. Please like, share and subscribe. Episode 41. Oh. My God. Another three-pointer. Incredible performance. It's crazy. Wang Ke's chase-up block. Pass it over, Brevin Knight's chase-up three-pointer. Also in. Dwayne's phantom step. The ball was not held firmly, and it hit his foot and went out of the baseline. This mistake is fatal. Ouch. This quick serve baseline ball. Gerald threw it. This time it finally didn't go in. Wow. Wang Ke rushed into the inside and shot the ball out. The Bobcats seemed to have turned into a wild beast. My God. Primoz Brezak also threw in a three-pointer from the outside. Crazy. All crazy. This world is too crazy. The commentator of the Miami Sports Channel had already shouted at the top of his lungs. Although the Bobcats were chasing points strongly, which was not in line with the commentator's position, this exciting scene still allowed the commentator to release his passion. On the court, O'Neal, who played again, showed a confused expression for the first time. In the last 2 minutes, the rhythm of the Bobcats game was not just fast, but soaring. O'Neal just ran across half-court and found that the offense was over. Turned around and ran towards the inside, and the defense was over again. Not to mention touching the ball, O'Neal couldn't get into position normally. O'Neal felt that he was jumping back and forth along the center line. Left-right-left. Jump 1. The rhythm of the Heat's game was completely messed up by the Bobcats. As a sophomore player, Wade still looked a little green after all. After the Bobcats started XJB, Wade followed uncontrollably. Seeing that the Bobcats were almost approaching the score at the speed of light, Wade was also anxious. But the more anxious he was, the less points he could get. It was only when Wade looked up at the scoreboard at this time that he gradually calmed down. 102:101. After this wave of chaos, the Bobcats led the Heat by 1 point. A comeback. At this time, there were only 9 seconds left before the end of the game, and the Heat had the ball. Can there be a buzzer beater? The Heat fans at the scene also began to get nervous. Van Gundy had just used the last timeout. At this time, his face was a little black. No one expected that a cooked duck can fly. Van Gundy now dared not look back at Riley's eyes. After this game, I have to endure Riley's crazy spray again. This is a fuss. Dwayne. The last attack is up to you. Van Gundy picked up the tactical board and drew, and made a deployment directly. At the last moment, it was time to play the superstar. As an inside player, O'Neal was not very convenient to perform the task of buzzer beater. It was difficult to just receive the ball smoothly. Therefore, a championship contending team must have a strong outside line to solve the problem. Wade nodded solemnly, and he was already very sober at this time. On the bench of the Bobcats, Bernie Bickerstaff was also making the final defensive deployment. The Heat will definitely let Dwayne play the last attack. Brevin. Bernie Bickerstaff stopped halfway through his words. Brevin Knight is too short. Wade doesn't even need to break through, and he has a high chance of making a direct top shot. Who should be used to defend? Gerald Wallace? Height is an advantage, but the pace may not be able to keep up. Or double team. Bernie Bickerstaff was a little undecided for a while. Coach. Let me defend. Wang Ke's voice suddenly sounded. Huh? Bernie Bickerstaff raised his eyebrows. Even though he had thought of many plans, none of them was to let Wang Ke defend Wade's last attack. Wade's official height is 1.93 meters, but he is actually even shorter. The height difference between him and Wang Ke is nearly 35 centimeters. This kind of big defense against small is generally avoided by the defense. Because the big man will be passed by the outside players in one step. Wang Ke's flexibility is indeed good, and his lateral footwork is also excellent, but to say that he can keep up with Wade is a bit floating. I want to take another gamble, bet that he can't make a three-pointer. I won't shoot a three-pointer. So, I just need to block his breakthrough near the free throw line. Wang Ke said seriously, obviously not floating, but after careful consideration. His defensive coverage area is very large. As long as Wade doesn't throw a three-pointer, whether it is a sudden stop and pull up, or a strong attack under the basket, Wang Ke can give great interference. In this regard, Wang Ke has a natural advantage. King. Sometimes you need to trust your teammates and not shoulder everything on your own. You may not be able to defend, and your teammates may not be able to defend. Bernie Bickerstaff patted Wang Ke on the shoulder. I always believe in my teammates. It's just that I think I have the highest probability of success in defense. As the core, the most difficult task should be completed by me. Wang Ke insisted, his expression was very firm. Okay. I hope you don't have so much pressure. Bernie Bickerstaff finally agreed. He was moved in his heart. In regular time, Wang Ke's playing style is very correct, very precise, and he is very calm and rational in both offense and defense. Rarely do risky things. But at the critical point of the game, Wang Ke's playing style will suddenly change, very radical and gamble. If Bernie Bickerstaff understands the culture of Dragon Country, Wang Ke will definitely tell him one sentence: use the right way to win, and win by the strange way. The timeout is over, and the game has entered the final, loser moment. Wade received the ball smoothly, and the Bobcats did not restrict the Heat's serve. However, Wade soon found a behemoth in front of him. Wang Ke. Wang Ke came to defend Wade's last attack. Everyone was shown off at this moment. Is the Bobcats giving it to him? Originally, Wade wanted to use the pick and roll to switch the Bobcats' inside line to his front, but now Wang Ke took the initiative to deliver it to him. Wade didn't have time to think about it, because time was running out. Bang. 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 Wade dribbled continuously between his legs outside the three-point line, trying to mobilize Wang Ke's defensive focus. Wang Ke was 2 steps away from Wade, lowered his center of gravity, and was not affected by Wade's dribbling at all. Right breakthrough. Wade stepped out with his right foot, as fast as lightning. With only 1 point behind, Wade would not gamble on a three-pointer, he was not Curry. He chose the most reliable strong breakthrough. I have to say that Wade's breakthrough was really fast. The 2 steps Wang Ke reserved acted as a buffer. With a quick slide, Wang Ke retreated quickly. Wade was not able to pass by Wang Ke this time. You have no chance. Seeing Wade forced to slow down and do a behind-the-back dribble, changing the rhythm and direction, Wang Ke was slightly excited. Sidestep to collect the ball. Facing jump shot. Wade's movements were very smooth. However, there was no chance. Wang Ke kicked his feet hard and jumped with all his strength. The time on the timer was almost up, and Wang Ke didn't have to consider Wade's fake moves. Fake moves would only prevent Wade from shooting. Wade shot. But he soon saw a black shadow and a big hand. Giant. The arc of the shot is not high enough. Wade's heart skipped a beat. I touched it. Wang Ke felt his fingertips touch the basketball. It wasn't a blood cap, just a touch, but it was enough. When the basketball was flying in the air, the time on the timer had already run out. The light came on and the ball didn't go in. After being touched by Wang Ke, the ball became a three-pointer. Lorkill, failure. Wang Ke blocked Wade's buzzer beater with a block. Oh. My God. The fans at the scene all stood up and held their heads with both hands. Wade lowered his head and walked towards the player tunnel without saying a word. This game was a bit of a cowardly loss. It was also a bit inexplicable. And Wang Ke opened his arms. Teammate rushed over. They created a miracle. The impossible became possible. They captured the American Airlines Center and defeated the first pick in the East. Awesome. Li Wei was also convinced. This is the charm of competitive sports. Everything is possible. He thought of the Longhua team again. Xiao Chen on the side was so excited that he couldn't help himself. This game was so exciting. Wang Ke. Seeing Wang Ke standing on the sidelines, Li Wei also shouted. Wang Ke raised his head in confusion and looked for the source of the voice. Are there people from Longhua coming to watch the game? Li Wei laughed when he saw Wang Ke's searching look. One thing can be confirmed, Wang Ke can speak Longhua. Xiao Chen walked to the front row and handed Wang Ke a business card. Director in charge of the Basketball Association, Li Wei. Wang Ke raised his eyebrows. When he looked up again, he saw Li Wei looking at him with a smile. Wang Ke nodded and said hello. Why would someone from the Longwa Basketball Association come to him at this time? Aren't you afraid of getting in trouble? Could it be? Wang Ke has something in his heart, I guess. Sit down. This is our first official meeting. Li Wei has the aura of a superior, but he seems very friendly at this time. At this time, Li Wei has completely understood why Yao Ming seemed so emotional during the Athens Olympics. Wang Ke not only knows the dragon language, but also looks no different from the dragon people. In Li Wei's opinion, Wang Ke is a dragon. It's just that his nationality is temporarily American. In this way, it would be a sin not to recruit Wang Ke to the dragon team. That night, several people chatted directly until the early morning of the next day. In addition to Li Wei and assistant Xiao Chen, Wang Jiji was also there. Li Wei knew that Wang Ke would continue his away journey with the team the next day. Time was tight, so he chose to stay up late tonight for a long talk. The actions on the surface must be based on private negotiations. Wang Ke was not opposed to returning to the Longwa team. After learning that Li Wei helped him overcome the previous difficulties, he had no reason to refuse. Li Wei suggested that Wang Ke return to Longwa next summer to recognize his ancestors. These were some necessary steps and procedures, and Wang Ke agreed. Wang Ke knew that he did have relatives in Longwa. But who they were, he really didn't know. Wang Ke was born in the United States and had never been back, so he naturally had never seen them. Li Wei revealed that they had already found Wang Ke's relatives, but they also had to do the preliminary work before recognizing them. It's impossible for Wang Ke to run back to recognize them, but the other party didn't recognize them. That would be embarrassing. Xiao Ku. It's not easy for you to be here alone. But from now on, you are no longer alone, but have the motherland as your strongest backing. I believe that you can lead the Longwa team to a new height together with other players. Before leaving, Li Wei shook hands with Wang Ke again and said very emotionally. Wang Ke nodded and left first. Li Wei and Wang Jiji still need to talk more deeply. After returning to the hotel where the team stayed, Wang Ke couldn't fall asleep. Is he going to return to the embrace of his motherland? It is difficult for Wang Ke to explain his feelings and emotions at this time. But one thing is certain, he is no longer a rootless duckweed. In this life, Wang Ke began to have a heavier bond. Episode 42. After defeating the powerful Heat team away from home, the Bobcats' upward momentum is very obvious. Then they defeated the Raptors away from home. After Wang Ke returned, a 3-game winning streak stabilized the situation for the Bobcats. The record of 8 wins and 6 losses not only raised the Bobcats' winning rate to more than 50% again, but also allowed the Bobcats to return to the top 8 in the East. Wang, what are you looking for? Claudia hugged Wang Ke from behind. She hadn't seen him for a while and missed him very much. Since Senior was injured and hospitalized, Claudia has been taking care of him in the hospital. And Wang Ke also went on a series of away trips. Counting it, the two have not seen each other for more than half a month. Therefore, after Wang Ke came back, Claudia seemed a little clingy. Brother Senior and Wang Ke are everything to her. Her emotions often change with Wang Ke's emotions, but she is also easily satisfied. Wang Ke wanted Claudia to have more social life and more of her own life. However, Claudia didn't have many friends. The only person she was close to was the manager of the pet store in Burghead Community. But it would be too unsafe for Claudia to go back to Burghead Community alone. As for making new friends, it was not that easy, and Claudia didn't care. She still preferred to stay at home, guarding her and his little home. Wang could just let Claudia do what she wanted. No one stipulated that he had to go out to socialize. Wang Ke himself was also an introvert. Looking for a box left by my parents. I've never opened it before. I want to see what's inside. Wang Ke said with a smile. Found it. Wang Ke found a small box in the room where idle items were placed. The fusion of the memories of the two lives made Wang Ke's impression of his parents a little vague. After seeing this box, some memories began to revive in Wang Ke's mind. Claudia knew that Wang Ke was thinking of some past events, so she didn't disturb him and sat quietly by his side to accompany him. The box looked very old, and the lock on the box was already a little rusty. Wang Ke broke the lock with a little force, which made him a little embarrassed. The box was opened, and there were some letters and photos inside. The moment he saw the group photo, the impression of his parents became clear. Claudia sat down and held Wang Ke's hand. It's okay. Wang Ke smiled at Claudia. He flipped through the photos until he saw a group photo. A photo of his mother and another young woman. The two look very similar. I remember that I don't have a sister, so this person is probably a cousin or an aunt. Why do I feel a little familiar? Of course my mother's appearance is familiar, Wang Ke doesn't mean this. But it is similar to a face in his memory of his previous life. I know who it is. Oh my god. What a coincidence. Maybe they just look alike? Longhua, Hangzhou. Old you, what are you watching? Eh? Watching basketball games? I remember you like football, but you are not interested in basketball. A middle-aged man walked into the office and glanced at Yu Cheng's computer screen, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. This is a design institute in Hangzhou, and it is the break time after lunch. Can't I just watch it if I'm not interested? Yu Cheng retorted. Hey. Of course. Which game is it, the Lakers versus the Heat? This is the first matchup between Kobe and O'Neal after they separated. Huh? The Heat versus the Bobcats? This is a replay. Why don't you watch the replay instead of the live broadcast? Lu Wenbin asked puzzledly. No. Are you basketball fans so nosy? Do I need your permission to watch a game? Yu Cheng said dissatisfiedly. Oh. You're still very angry. You must be in menopause. Get lost. Yu Cheng turned his eyes to the computer screen again. He had been paying attention to only one person, the tallest player on the field, Wang Ke. Just yesterday morning, Yu Cheng received a call. An American wanted to find them to trace their ancestry? What a joke. Yu Cheng almost thought he had met a liar. However, after the other party proved his identity, Yu Cheng knew the importance of this matter. Some long-lost memories were also evoked. That was more than 20 years ago. Yu Rui is the daughter of my second uncle. My uncle is very tall, and Yu Rui inherited his gene, so she is taller. She has loved playing basketball since she was a child, and eventually became a basketball player. Because of playing basketball, Yu Rui and my uncle had a bad relationship. My uncle hoped that Yu Rui could find a stable job. We are probably the same in this regard. Later, Yu Rui met Wang Wenkong in the men's team, and the two began to date. This made my uncle even more dissatisfied. Because Wang Wenkong came from an orphanage, he had nothing. Even in basketball, he was mediocre. My uncle's temper was really too violent. After a meeting with Wang Wenkong, he started fighting. He even beat Wang Wenkong to the hospital, and one of his legs was lame. Now, Wang Wenkong can't even play basketball. Yu Rui was so angry that she wanted to sever the father-daughter relationship with her uncle on the spot. My second uncle has only one daughter, and my second aunt passed away a long time ago. He was the one who raised Yu Rui. He couldn't stand what Yu Rui said, so he really signed a document to sever the father-daughter relationship, and even went to the community to find a witness to press his fingerprints. Later. I don't know why, Yu Rui and Wang Wenkong chose to immigrate. I heard that they went to the United States. Very determined. For so many years, they haven't come back. At the beginning, there was some news coming back, but later, there was no news at all. You know my second uncle, not long after, his health collapsed, and then he passed away. Yu Cheng's voice slowly sounded, narrating the past more than 20 years ago. You never told me these things in detail, and I didn't ask much. So, this is why you have never been interested in basketball, or even hate it. Cheng Bei, who was standing by, patted the back of her husband's hand and shook it. Yes. We don't have many children. When I was little, I treated Xiaorui as my own sister. So many years have passed. I can't tell whether I was right or wrong. I asked the people in the General Administration of Sports. Xiaorui and Wang Kong were gone 5 years ago. What kind of life are they living in the United States? Yu Cheng shook his head, with a trace of sadness in his eyes. Don't think too much. That Xiaoka is their child? Cheng Bei held her husband's hand tighter. Yes. Xiaoka is amazing. He has already established a firm foothold in the American League. The General Administration of Sports wants to naturalize Xiaoka and let him play for the Dragon national team in the Olympics. Yu Chang took a deep breath and adjusted his mood. Since we know Xiaoke, we naturally have to take him back. These 5 years. How hard it must have been for him to live alone. Chang Bei felt distressed. Yeah. We are his only relatives. Xiao Bei, if possible, I want to treat Xiaoke as our child in the future. Yu Chang looked at his wife and said seriously. It should be so. What do you think of me as? It just so happens that we don't have a son. Chang Bei rolled her eyes at Yu Chang. Hee hee. Yu Chang smiled. They were an old couple and had always had a good relationship. Needless to say, there was nothing to say. But now I remember another thing. You said, Fei Hong went to the United States for 3 years. Did she meet Xiao Rui and the others? Yu Chang restrained his smile. It shouldn't be. The probability of this happening is too small. Chang Bei felt that Yu Chang was overthinking. No. I remember that she was a little hesitant when she talked to us on the phone during that period. She also asked me about Shirue once. I didn't think too much at the time, and asked her why she suddenly mentioned her aunt. She fooled me. Maybe there is a will in the dark. Yu Chang felt that if he had asked more questions at the time, he might have met Yu Rui and the others. Maybe some things can be changed. It's too late to think about these things now. Call Fei Hong back and ask. We haven't seen her for a long time. She's over 30 years old, and she doesn't have any intention of getting married. Chang Bei sighed, every family has its own problems. She's already in this business, so it's meaningless to keep thinking about these things. If I had the temper of my second uncle, I'm afraid I would have to sever the father-daughter relationship with her now. Humph. Yu Chang snorted. What nonsense are you talking about? Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Chang Bei patted Yu Chang. But then, Chang Bei sighed again. Voice. Old Yu is a top student in civil engineering at Tsinghua University, and he majored in chemical engineering at Jiangsu and Zhejiang University. A family composed of 2 science and engineering majors could never dream that their daughter would enter the entertainment industry. So it seems that the daughter is really like her aunt. Very stubborn. Somewhat desperate in pursuit of her own things. Fortunately, she and old Yu finally chose to tolerate. Until now, I don't know whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. I can't care so much. Yu Chang then lost his temper again. Because Yu Fei Hong used the excuse of being in the crew for filming and said that she had no time to come back. However, Yu Fei Hong was a little interested in her cousin who suddenly appeared. 10 years ago, Yu Fei Hong, who was in her early 20s, did meet her aunt Yu Rui in the United States. But at that time, the two simply had a meal together and didn't talk too much. Yu Fei Hong could sense that her aunt was not doing well. As for the existence of Wang Ke, Yu Fei Hong didn't know. In the United States, Wang Ke will usher in his first Christmas with Claudia. As a team that has just joined the league, the Bobcats naturally cannot have the opportunity to have a Christmas war. Therefore, Wang Ke also has the first long 3-day holiday after the start of the new season. Before Christmas, the Bobcats had a record of 11 wins and 11 losses. The winning rate is exactly 50%. And in the Eastern Conference ranking, it is also stuck at the 8th place in the Eastern Conference. The Nets and Cavaliers behind them are only 0.5 wins away from the Bobcats. The win or loss of a game will change the ranking. However, the season has just been more than a quarter, and there is still a long way to go. No one can say what position the Bobcats will be in by the end of the season. After 22 games, the Bobcats have basically no problems with running in. And the advantages and disadvantages have become extremely obvious. Christmas is coming, and the Bobcats management cannot enjoy the holiday. They will hold 3 consecutive meetings to formally determine the Bobcats' season goals. At present, the Bobcats have hope of making the playoffs, but it is only hope. If the Bobcats finish the regular season in the 9th or 10th place in the East, it will be the worst result. Missing the playoffs, and missing out on a good draft pick next season. So, whether it is competing for a playoff spot or the number 1 pick, it is still not too late to change the goal now. Episode 43. I think the team's goal should be more practical, that is, to play badly. Then wouldn't our efforts in the previous games be in vain? The current situation is that as long as we persist, we can make history and enter the playoffs. What if we can't make it? That's right, you have to fight to know. If you play badly, everything will be ruined. In the meeting room of the Charlotte Arena, a fierce debate is going on, and soon it turns into a quarrel. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff and general manager Petty Tom's faces are not very good at this time. A team is not controlled by the general manager and the head coach. In the management, there are also operations directors, executive presidents, and vice presidents. There is naturally direct intervention from the boss. Most team owners will not interfere with the team's lineup and tactical aspects, but there are exceptions. For example, Cuban of the Mavericks. When encountering such a boss, the power of the general manager and the head coach can be easily hollowed out. The Mavericks once made a farce of two teams in their previous life. Cuban brought his team and general manager Nelson's team to the draft at the same time, and then made different choices and trades. As a result, of course, the boss has the final say. But Nelson has been ridiculed by his peers. Another example is a family business like the Lakers' old bus, who relies entirely on the team to survive. There are endless infighting inside. Various creative positions have also emerged, and the people below sometimes don't know who to listen to. Now a newly established team like the Bobcats has not yet evolved into such a complicated interest mountain. However, the goal of Petty Tom and Bernie Bickerstaff to strive for the playoffs set at the beginning of the season still encountered great doubts at this time. And the other party is not unreasonable, what he said makes sense. Then it becomes a question of choice. I suggested before the season started that we should play badly this season to compete for the number 1 pick, because there will be 2 high-quality point guards next season. Then we can form a core of 1 inside and 1 outside, and then supplement it with other role players. This is a standard team-building idea. The hope of success is great. But you had different opinions at the time, thinking that relying on Wang Ke, you can take off right from the start. I have to admit that I underestimated Wang Ke, and your estimation of Wang Ke was correct. He is really strong. But he needs help. This season, we can't find the helper through the transaction, there is no bargaining. But we can bring him a second home by the draft next season. Can you not wait for a season? What about gambling? Oh. Operating Director Peggy knocked on the table in front of him, and his tone has become severe. As the operating director, Peggy pays more attention to the team's revenue and expenditure finance. The team's operation and income obviously have a lot to do with the team's achievements. The good record of the season will usher in more fans and sponsorship for the team. Now, Page thinks he needs to take action to get the team back on track. I disagree with your opinion. What determines a team's final success in the league? I think it is something that can be called team spirit, winning gene. And how is the winning gene established? It is not that winning more games can establish the winning gene, but that you never give up in every game and fight to the end. Winning means knowing how you win. Losing means knowing how you lose. If our team's ultimate goal is just to make the playoffs, then I admit that you are right. If we play badly this season, selecting an outside core next season will make it easier to make the playoffs than this season. But what about after making the playoffs? Is that the end? And if our team's ultimate goal is the championship, then I think it is important to forge the team spirit in the first 2 seasons. As for choosing another core, it is not that important. Because we have already with Wang Ke. Don't forget, not every rookie can grow as fast as Wang Ke. Do you want to wait a few more years? Don't waste Wang Ke's peak period. And players like Gerard and Primas may not be able to be tempered. Bernie Bickerstaff stood up, expressed his opinions, and fought back. The quarrel in the conference room continued. When neither side could convince the other, the choice could only be handed over to the boss. And given the boss's neurotic characteristics, both sides were actually unwilling to let the boss make the decision. Because the results are often random and unreasonable. But in fact, there is no way. Both sides are praying that the coin toss will fall on the side they choose. On Christmas Eve, Wang Ke and Claudia spent a night of tenderness. The next morning, when Claudia woke up, she found that the man next to her was gone. Ouch! Claudia sat up suddenly, and her forehead touched a sock, the sock that Santa Claus used to put gifts in. What's in it? Claudia muttered. When her forehead touched it just now, she could feel that there was a hard object inside the sock. She reached into the sock and took it out, and then she was stunned. Tears could not stop flowing down. It was a ring. I said women are troublesome, they only know how to cry. Is it really okay for you to say that about your sister? She will be your family soon, so contact me less in the future. Senior, sometimes I really want to beat you up. Wang Ke took a deep breath and knew it was his turn to come out. Holding the flowers, Wang Ke walked in front of Claudia. On Christmas Day, Wang Ke formally proposed. This is Wang Ke's Christmas gift to Claudia. Together, for a lifetime. Both parties have no parents, and with Senior's witness, the two are considered engaged. Senior has almost recovered. Except for a little weakness, there are no other problems. The wedding is tentatively scheduled for next summer, during the off-season. In fact, the two of them living together are no different from family members. But Wang Ke knows that Claudia needs a status and a sense of security in her heart. Snowflakes are floating outside the window, it's snowing. It's snowing. In the general manager's office at the Charlotte Arena, Petty Tom also looked out the window. On Christmas, Petty Tom is still working overtime. Yeah. Bernie Bickerstaff looked up and continued to look through the player information in his hand. The quarrel in the meeting that lasted for nearly 3 days finally ended and had a result. As expected, the neurotic boss Robert Johnson has a neurotic way of making decisions. Turning bad? No. That's too tacky. We will be the first team to make the playoffs right after the team was established? We will cultivate the team spirit? Cool. This is good. It's decided. Don't follow the beaten path. This is in line with my temperament. These are the original words of the boss Robert Johnson on the phone. Petit Tom and Bernie Bickerstaff got the boss's support again, but they were not so happy at this time. The pressure came with it. After this big discussion, the two can basically be regarded as having issued a military order. If the team makes the playoffs this season, then everything will be fine. And if it doesn't make it, it's probably time for them to leave. The point guard position has a big problem. Without a good organizer, sometimes it's difficult to pass the ball to Wang Ke smoothly. We fought to the limit in every game before. There is no backhand and no retreat. Some adjustments are needed in tactics. It would be best to sign an experienced point guard veteran. It's also necessary to give Wang Ke a heavier burden. Bernie Bickerstaff said while looking through the information. There is an old saying in the Dragon Country, the sword is sharpened by grinding. Michael led the Bulls to the playoffs in his rookie season, and I think Wang Ke can do the same. He can handle the pressure. Besides, Page and the others actually overlooked an important variable, Wang Ke's growth rate. It's almost time for him to take another leap. Petit Tom said with a smile. Unconsciously, Wang Ke's position in their hearts has been placed in the league's historical superstar line, listed. Of course, it is not to say that Wang Ke has such ability now, but he has such potential. When did you become interested in Dragon Country culture? On December 26th, the Bobcats players ended their 3-day vacation. And as soon as they come back, they will face another away trip. Tomorrow night, they will go to New York to challenge the Knicks. The next morning, the Bobcats players gathered at the Charlotte Arena and got on the team bus together, ready to go to the airport. And on the bus, Wang Ke saw an unexpected person appear. At that moment, Wang Ke thought he was seeing flowers. Coach? Wang Ke looked at Rod Strickland, who came to sit next to him. Now he is your teammate. I didn't expect it. Rod Strickland said with a smile. During the off-season, Rod Strickland has been training Wang Ke's ball control, so Wang Ke has always called him coach. After playing 15 games for the Rockets this season, Rod Strickland was cut. The Bobcats urgently needed an experienced point guard veteran to fill the lineup gap, so they quickly signed a contract with Rod Strickland. I really didn't expect it. Wang Ke also laughed. It's a happy thing to meet familiar people. Wang. I didn't see you use the things I taught you in the summer on the court. It's time to use it. Rod Strickland patted Wang Ke on the shoulder and said meaningfully. After being signed by the Bobcats, Rod Strickland, as the only veteran over 35 years old in the team, had full communication with head coach Bernie Bickerstaff. Rod Strickland also made suggestions on the organizational support problems of the Bobcats. Why not consider letting Wang Ke play the role of the core of the organization appropriately? Episode 44. Every rookie player will encounter the rookie wall. Some rookies cross it strongly and eventually embark on the road to stardom. Some rookies are blocked by the wall, and finally leave behind the legend that they are at their peak at the beginning and only at their peak at the beginning. The time when the rookie wall appears is not certain. Because the so-called rookie wall is nothing more than a defensive change caused by the different levels of attention paid to rookie players by other teams in the league. Wang Ke's rookie wall appeared very early. His extremely strong performance and the only core of the Bobcats will make other teams pay attention to Wang Ke too early. They will make more targeted offensive and defensive deployments for Wang Ke. In the few games before Christmas, Wang Ke has begun to encounter frequent double teaming and some foul crises. In the case of not being able to get enough support from his teammates, in the eyes of many teams, Wang Ke is not difficult to defend, and the Bobcats are not difficult to deal with. As a center, if you have difficulty connecting the ball, how can you attack? As a center, if you are called for 2 fouls right after coming up, how can you protect the frame and fight for rebounds? Although a strong heavy center will greatly increase the team's ceiling, the team configuration required is also correspondingly high. Both O'Neal and Yao Ming have a deep understanding of this. Before encountering Zen Master's triangle offense, O'Neal had been suffering from double teaming, and was swept by shaved heads many times in the playoffs. And Yao Ming has always been afraid of double teaming and going around the front, and the Rockets have always been criticized for not having a point guard who can pass the ball to Yao Ming. These are the problems that heavy centers will face, and Wang Ke is no exception. There are ways to break the deadlock, but it requires the players themselves to have more abilities. O'Neal does not have the ability to shoot from mid-range and long-range, so he can only work near the basket. Develop historical level high post coordination and pick-and-roll capabilities in the later stage, and win another championship with Wade. Yao Ming had already set a path to match O'Neal, but due to his physical strength and ability to break double teams, he was always a breath away. And Wang Ke knew that in the future there would be another fat man who successfully broke through and became an unprecedented, organizing center. He is also the center who is least afraid of double teams in the league. Jokic, the teacher. It is difficult to say that Jokic's low-post hard-solving ability is very strong, especially in the small ball era when the inside line is weak. But when it comes to being double-teamed, there will be no difference between now and in the future. Then, you will find that many teams will give up double-teaming Jokic and would rather let him attack 1v1. Because Jokic's passing ability when facing double teams is too strong. Wang. I know this is a bit high for you. But we must increase our tolerance for mistakes by making our tactics more diverse. Then we will form the flexibility of our lineup. We were too tight before. The tolerance for mistakes was too low. We must make almost no mistakes in every game to win the game. As long as you are restricted, we will lose 100%. So, I ask you to do more. After arriving at Madison Square Garden in New York, Bernie Bickerstaff took Wang Ke to a private class and said a lot. I ask you to take on more organizational and support tasks. Bernie Bickerstaff said the final sentence. Rod Strickland is too old after all, he is almost 39 years old. He was signed to increase the team's ball control stability at critical moments. But it is unrealistic to expect Rod Strickland to organize a whole game. At this time, there are supporting centers in the league. Divac of the Kings is the best example. In the past few seasons, the Kings' Princeton system has been very successful, and Divac's organization and support have contributed greatly. After Divac was about to retire, the Kings developed another support-type center, Brad Miller. However, Bernie Bickerstaff still felt a little guilty after saying this. For a rookie, the requirements are too much. No problem. Wang Ke nodded and agreed. He sees more of this than his contemporaries. Wang Ke was just a little surprised that Bernie Bickerstaff dared to let him make these attempts. It seems that the coach is under a lot of pressure. The Bobcats have no room for improvement according to their previous style of play. If you want to go further, you must seek change. Seeking change often has a period of pain. Organization and support, it sounds very grand, but it is not that mysterious. Advanced organization and coordination is to be able to understand the rhythm on the court and always grasp the state and mentality of opponents and teammates, so as to make the most correct passing choice and send the ball to the most suitable teammate. It involves a lot of mental calculations. The best ones are Stockton and Kidd. They have their own systems and can create systems. They are real coaches on the field. The intermediate organization and coordination rely on the tactical system and become the core of the high position. After understanding the tactics, they deal cards and send the ball to teammates who keep cutting and cutting inside. The best ones are Sabonis and Divac, as well as Paul Gasol and Green. The low-level organization and coordination is very simple. As long as you have a basic passing awareness, you don't just want to throw the ball yourself. You have enough vision to see the position of teammates who run out of the open space and pass the ball to them. You can also force yourself to attack and change the defense and make breakthroughs. The best ones include breakthrough masters such as Kevin Johnson, Rose and Westbrook, and Early James, etc. Simply from the ability of organization and coordination, it can be divided into high, medium and low, because it is difficult to say what technical content Westbrook's passing during the period of averaging triple-doubles per game has. But in terms of the influence and effect on the game, it is not necessarily that high-level organization and coordination are better. More often, physical talent crushes everything. Relying on the unsolvable breakthrough ability, and then constantly brainless breakthroughs, simple and rough, but the effect is the best. Similar to defensive ability, only players who lack physical talent need to make up for it through defensive awareness and skills. And Wang Ke, as long as he stands there, he is the best inside defensive gate. Wang Ke already knows how to play. During the pre-match warm-up, Wang Ke did not practice low post and defensive slides under the basket as usual, but conducted more passing and three-point shooting exercises. This did not attract the attention of the Knicks. At 8 p.m., the game officially started. After Wang Ke walked onto the court, he also glanced at the audience. Although the Knicks have become mud this season, the attendance rate of Madison Square Garden is still very impressive. Big cities are different. The huge fan base is enough to support the attendance here. For Knicks fans, watching the game at home is often like watching a movie at night. They come here purely to relax, and they don't care so much about the outcome of the game. This is why the Knicks are always one of the most profitable teams in the league no matter how bad their record is. But it is also because of this that the Knicks home fans often cheer for the opponent's players. Small market teams are not good. If there are not enough die-hard fans, the attendance will become very ugly. The leader of the Knicks this season is Marbury. Marbury still retains a trace of vigor and fighting spirit. But soon, he will be lost in the colorful world of New York. Finally went to Longwa to be saved and became Ma Zhengwei. After the opening, the Bobcats played very smoothly. Nazem Muhammad and Kurt Thomas, two lightweight inside players, were completely unable to stop Wang Ke's impact. In the first quarter, the Bobcats led the Knicks by 4 points with 28-24. Wang Ke did not rashly try a new style of play, as there was no need for it yet. In the second quarter, after Wang Ke went off the court to rest, the Bobcats' old problems began to emerge. The bench lineup was weak in scoring. The Knicks relied on the mid-range shooting textbook, Allen Houston's consecutive pull-up shots, to quickly level the score difference and achieve a reversal. Sitting on the bench, Wang Ke took a deep breath. This kind of game process has almost become the norm for the Bobcats. Every time Wang Ke came back on the court in the second quarter, he had to face the situation of filling the hole. At this time, as long as the opponent decisively double-teamed Wang Ke, the Bobcats' offense would be blocked again. This game was no exception. The head coach of the Knicks at this time was the super boss Lenny Wilkens, who had been selected as a Hall of Fame coach. The 67-year-old coach did not hesitate in deploying Wang Ke's defense, and decisively adopted a double team. Wang Ke knew that the challenge was coming again. It was time to show new abilities and new playing styles. Wang Ke's ultimate goal in growing up on the court was to become an all-around warrior. On the court, the second quarter was in the 5th minute, and the score on the scoreboard was 31-34, with the Bobcats trailing the Knicks by 2 points. In 5 minutes, the Bobcats only scored 3 points. Rod Strickland and Wang Ke were substituted on the court together, and he controlled the ball across half court. After Wang Ke pushed and shoved Nazem Muhammad a few times in the paint, he suddenly went outside the three-point line. Follow up. Don't let it go. Lenny Wilkens shouted towards the court one sentence. Wang Ke's three-pointers are rare, but the consecutive three-pointers during the comeback against the Heat have already made all the teams notice this. At this time, it is not so easy for Wang Ke to get an easy three-pointer opportunity. Rod Strickland saw Wang Ke coming out and immediately passed the ball. After Wang Ke received the ball, he did not hesitate. He took a step with his right foot and passed by Nazr Muhammad, who followed him like the wind. Oh. Sheet. What the hell is this? A 2.26-meter small forward? Lenny Wilkens on the sideline stood up at once. David Robinson, who was 2.16 meters tall in his peak period, often broke through with the ball like a small forward, which was already exaggerated enough. Now Wang Ke is also doing this? Will there be players over 2.3 meters tall who will do this next time? At this moment, Lenny Wilkens felt that he was a little old and could not keep up with the times. On the court, Wang Ke's dribbling breakthrough was unexpected and the Knicks players didn't react. Another inside player, Kurt Thomas, subconsciously took a step forward. And Wang Ke kicked his right foot and flew into the air. In front of him was the basket, and Wang Ke felt that he could swing the ball directly in. Under the basket was his teammate Primoz Brezek, who was left open. Wang Ke felt that he could pass the ball with a flick of his wrist, without any obstruction in the middle. He jumped too high, and with his height, he could see all the mountains. Wang Ke chose to pass the ball. With a flick of his wrist, the basketball came into Primoz Brezek's hands. At such a close distance, there was no problem of passing accuracy. Primoz Brezek easily dunked after receiving the ball. Bang! 2 points in hand. Wang Ke assists +1. 33:34. Wang Ke and Primoz Brezek clapped their hands, and a different feeling came to their hearts. It's so easy to get assists. Wang Ke felt a little bit of Westbrook's happiness in his previous life. If he keeps playing like this, averaging a triple-double is not a dream. Oh. My God. Such a big guy dribbling and breaking through outside the three-point line? The big screen above the court was replaying the scene of Wang Ke dribbling and breaking through. The home fans of the Knicks team all exclaimed. Wang. After dribbling and passing the ball, be careful not to let the ball be too low, otherwise it will be easily slapped away by the opponent. I suggest that you can grab the ball with one hand and hold it above your head after passing the ball, which is the safest way. But you have done a great job. Rod Strickland ran to Wang Ke's side and said with a smile. To do this, you also need extraordinary physical talent. The palm should be big so that you can easily grab the ball. The arm span should be long so that the opponent can't touch it after raising it. Kobe's hands are a little small, which makes him unable to catch the ball as easily as Jordan. As a result, he can only be a low-profile version of Jordan in all aspects. Episode 45. The Knicks attack. Marbury suddenly shot a three-pointer from outside the three-point line, trying to make an answer ball. Rod Strickland, a veteran defender, stepped forward and gently pushed Marbury on the waist. This was very hidden, the referee did not notice it, and Marbury was obviously disturbed. Bang! Marbury hit a shot. Wang Ke stretched his arms inside and perfectly blocked the position. Nazr Muhammad wanted to go forward to fight for a front-court rebound, but found that he was blocked by Wang Ke and couldn't even jump. Primoz Brezek on the other side easily received the rebound. Except for the occasional rebound, Wang Ke played reasonably most of the time and did not insist on brushing rebound data. In terms of rebounding positioning, he did a very good job. This allows the Bobcats to do their best in protecting the backcourt rebounds. With the overall strength of the Bobcats, this must be done in a reasonable way. Otherwise, it will lead to the loss of rebounds. Because when you insist on brushing the rebound, there will always be unexpected situations, which will give the opponent a chance to rush the rebound. Rod Strickland regained control of the ball and passed the half-court, and then directly passed the ball to Wang Ke, who came near the three-point line. At this time, Wang Ke was outside the three-point line at a 45-degree angle on the right side, and Rod Strickland directed his teammates to pull to the other side. Leaving the right side empty, at least it can ensure that there are no Knicks players on Wang Ke's right side. Wang Ke grabbed the ball with one hand and raised it high. Stick to it. Lenny Wilkens on the sidelines always felt that Wang Ke might make a three-pointer at any time. Nazr Muhammad originally seemed a little at a loss on the defensive end. After all, he had never encountered such a situation before. Now hearing the coaches shout, he knows what to do. Come on. Wang Ke saw Nazr Muhammad approaching, took a step forward with his right foot, and had a physical confrontation without fear. Bang! Nazr Muhammad was hit by the huge impact and staggered. After adjusting his steps, he found that Wang Ke had left him with his back. Bang! After Wang Ke got rid of Nazir Muhammad, he kicked his left foot and took off directly, making a gliding dunk. The powerful dunk made the whole basket tremble. That is to say, the quality of the basket is very good now, otherwise, Wang Ke might have copied O'Neal's feat and dunked the basket. 35:34. Wang Ke led the Bobcats to overtake the score. Such a result is not surprising, because Wang Ke has done it countless times in previous games. What is unexpected is that the process of chasing points seems too unusual. Wang Ke showed something new, which was a bit beyond the scope for the Knicks. Because before the game, they did not have the opportunity to deploy in a targeted manner. It's time to test the on-the-spot responsibility of the old coach Lenny Wilkens. In his previous life, Antetokounmpo often completed such an impact from the three-point line to the inside. It is basically impossible to completely defend it, but it can still be done with a little restriction. That is to shrink the inside line. This point can be used to defend breakthrough players, and it can be effective. However, for outside breakthrough players under 2.05 meters, there is no need to shrink the inside line significantly. As long as there is a high center, it can have a very good effect. For example, James will be defeated every time he meets Yao Ming, because James in the early days relied on a strong breakthrough. Yao Ming really couldn't break through James in the inside. But what if the height of this breakthrough player is over 2.1 meters? What about Wang Ke, who is over 2.2 meters? Then a simple 2.1 meter center is not enough to defend the inside. It's like Wade rushed to the inside and took a closer look. It was Iverson who was squatting in the inside to defend. Isn't that a random shot? Beep. Lenny Wilkens called a timeout. The Bobcats' new offensive style, whether it is him or the Knicks players, needs to slow down. Next, our defense will shrink the inside more. Lenny Wilkens drew a line near the free throw line on the tactical board. If they continue to choose to clear one side, the other player in the inside should be ready to go over to assist at any time. Wang Ke's offensive style after rushing to the inside is basically to end with a dunk. As long as he can't dunk easily, his finishing rate will drop. Lenny Wilkens continued. He did choose to shrink the defense. This will definitely, of course, it will give the Bobcats more long-range shooting opportunities from the outside, but Lenny Wilkens is not worried. Because the Bobcats' outside shooting rate is average, and the shooting is not deadly. When the Knicks shrink the inside, the basket is crowded, and Wang Ke's front-court rebounds will be restricted. Kill two birds with one stone. The timeout is over and the game continues. Wang Ke's new style of play makes the Knicks home fans feel very novel. This makes them look forward to Wang Ke's next performance. The Knicks attack. Marbury threw another three-pointer with Kurt Thomas's pick-and-roll. Bang. Still no. Wang Ke was collecting rebounds in the inside, and on a whim, he did not choose to give the ball to Rod Strickland, but controlled the ball himself through half-court. Haha. Rod Strickland laughed when he saw this. He didn't expect such a scene to really appear in the official game. Subconsciously glancing at the head coach on the sidelines, Rod Strickland found that Bernie Bickerstaff had no strange expression on his face. Obviously, no matter what Wang Ke did on the court, he would get Bernie Bickerstaff's support. Bernie Bickerstaff gave Wang Ke full tactical freedom on the court. Of course, the overall tactical execution of the Bobcats is still very strict, and only Wang Ke has a certain degree of freedom. You met a good coach. Very lucky. Rod Strickland smiled faintly. But not every head coach will give players freedom on the court. Some old-school rigorous coaches will replace you in a minute, so sit on the bench honestly. Wow. So cool. Such a tall point guard? This game is getting more and more interesting. Go and grab him. He's so tall that you can definitely steal the ball. Maybe he heard the comments of the fans in the audience, but Marbury really rushed over to grab the ball. Use your body to protect the ball and keep a good rhythm of ball control. Wang Ke was not panicked, and Rod Strickland's teachings during the ball control training came to his mind. Bang. Wang Ke leaned sideways to protect the ball, and his huge body directly blocked Marbury to one side. Marbury felt like he hit a mountain. He stretched out his hand to cross Wang Ke's body to grab the ball, but found that he couldn't reach it at all. Fuck. Double team. Marbury shouted to center Nazir Muhammad, "You are standing there in a daze." Nazir Muhammad rushed towards Wang Ke quickly, and soon he and Marbury would form a siege on Wang Ke. When facing double teaming, if you haven't been surrounded yet, you can use your long legs to take a step forward and break through. Your physical confrontation ability can ensure that your dribbling will not be affected too much. If the double teaming is very fast and of high quality, you can consider jumping to pass the ball, but this requires a lot of training to form a dynamic visual reaction, quickly find the position of teammates, and throw the ball over. In short, make full use of your physical talent. Wang Ke smashed the ball to the far floor, and at the same time, his right foot slammed. Bang! Nazr Mohammed, who rushed over, and Wang Ke's body had a head-on confrontation, passionate confrontation. Fuck! Nazr Mohammed was directly knocked away by Wang Ke. And Wang Ke's forward momentum was almost unaffected. At this time, the league style is still at the tail end of the iron-blooded confrontation, and this level of confrontation will not be called for a foul. If there is a foul, it will be Nazr Mohammed's blocking foul. However, in the future, when the whistle is on, it may not be certain. Wang Ke may be called for an offensive foul. Wang Ke controlled the ball again and continued to rush to the basket. Perfect breakthrough through double teaming. When encountering double teaming in the high position, the space to respond is obviously larger. Unlike the low position, because it is back-to-back, two people double teaming, basically becoming a sandwich, unable to move. Oh. Shit. Kurt Thomas cursed and had to make up for the defense. What about the contraction of the inside defense? You are double teaming outside the three-point line. This time, Marbury obviously did not play according to the tactics deployed by head coach Lenny Wilkins, but played freely. Hey! Wang Ke found that the game became simple again. At this time, Wang Ke could dunk on Kurt Thomas or throw the ball lightly into the air. Bang! Gerald Wallace and Wang Ke quickly cut inside and completed a goal. Alley-oop cooperation, two-handed catch, dunk. Very easy. Wang Ke dismembered the Knicks' defense with his personal ability, making the Bobcats' game easier. Yes. 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 I knew he could do it. Wang is always creating miracles. Bernie Bickerstaff on the sidelines couldn't hold back his excitement, waved his arms fiercely a few times, and then clapped his hands again. It's different. In the previous games, Wang Ke had to rely on his teammates' passes. If he wanted to play an offensive threat, he needed a lot of preconditions. The pre-swing is too long. The ability values of other players on the Bobcats are not enough for the time being, and they can't support Wang Ke's pre-swing. But now it's different. Wang Ke no longer needs preconditions, but has become the precondition for his teammates' offense, creating a lot of offensive opportunities for his teammates. Wang Ke's ability is maximized. The Bobcats' offense has become more varied and active. Great. Wang. I'm convinced. Rod Strickland ran over and bumped fists with Wang Ke, then smiled and shook his head. Wang Ke's learning speed is really too fast. Wang Ke just perfectly fulfilled Rod Strickland's teaching requirements. This also made Rod Strickland realize that Wang Ke's previous mention of him having the trait of getting stronger through crazy training may not be a lie, but a real existence. Isn't this a kind of talent? This is the top talent. Rod Strickland was a little envious. He himself is about to retire and will not ask for these, but he hopes that his adopted son Kyrie Irving can also have such a talent. Defense. Give me some defensive discipline. Shrink the defense. Lenny Wilkins shouted angrily to the court. He was very dissatisfied with Marbury's defensive choice just now. 37:34. The Bobcats have already led the Knicks by 3 points. Episode 46. The Knicks' offense still failed to score. Marbury's outside shooting was too bad in this game. Moreover, he was a little upset after being yelled at by Lenny Wilkins just now. This time he made another three-pointer, but it was still a miss. So far in the game, Marbury has been 0 out of 4 shots from beyond the three-point line. Although Rod Strickland is old, he is much better than Brevin Knight in defending Marbury. Brevin Knight's height of 1.78 meters is a flaw, and his defensive experience and awareness are also insufficient. The shorter the player, the taller he tends to report. Brevin Knight's height is at most 1.75 meters. This is no different from ordinary people. Being able to appear on the court and being the starting point guard of the Bobcats sounds very inspiring. But he will be infinitely targeted on both offense and defense on the court. If it weren't for a last resort, the Bobcats would not use him as a starter. Speaking of which, with the development of the league, this kind of short players are basically extinct. Thomas may be the last short point guard to make a name for himself. Later, the height of point guards is getting taller and taller. If you are not 2 meters tall, you are embarrassed to play point guard. In the future development of basketball, the height of inside players will become shorter and the height of outside players will become taller. Just from the height, it is impossible to distinguish the position of the players. In the end, it evolved into a situation where talented players play outside and attack with the ball. And those who are not talented enough become blue-collar inside players. Short point guards are like the classic front midfielders in football, gradually disappearing. Because if you only have one hand of organizational ability, you can't gain a foothold on the court. Wang Ke in the inside line once again perfectly blocked the position, allowing Primoz Brezek to receive the rebound. At present, there are really not many inside players like Wang Ke who are keen on blocking positions in the league. There are often situations where 2 inside players of the team fight together. Sometimes this will lead to mistakes and be picked up by the opponent. Why? These are all data. For the blue-collar inside player, if the rebounding data is not good, then he really has no value to play. Wang Ke no longer needs to prove himself with explosive data at this time, he has already passed the previous stage. As the core of the team, he should do the most difficult work and hand over the easy work to his teammates, and everyone drinks and eats meat together. Wang Ke no longer needs to prove himself through data, but his teammates still need it. If you grab all the data, how can you let your teammates play? The Bobcats attack. Rod Strickland controls the ball through half court. Wang Ke gestured to Rod Strickland, plan D. Pick and roll. Wang Ke's pick and roll was very solid, allowing Rod Strickland to completely get rid of Marbury's defense. Then, Wang Ke quickly went down and attracted the defensive attention of the Knicks. The Knicks team followed the principle of shrinking the inside defense, and center Nazr Mohammed did not switch defense quickly. He was defending Wang Ke. Rod Strickland got an open opportunity outside the three-point line. Three-point shot. Swish. Steady hit. Rod Strickland was still able to grasp this kind of wide-open opportunity. 40:34. The score difference has been gradually widened by the Bobcats. Rod Strickland's three-point shooting ability is not outstanding. Wang Ke is thinking at this time, if the person next to him is Curry, how big a threat would it be? Wang Ke is increasingly looking forward to playing a game of brother basketball with Curry after he enters the league. However, the specifics, you have to really cooperate to know, it is easy to make mistakes. In the previous life, Antetokounmpo and Lillard's lazy pick and roll in the Bucks should be infinitely threatening. But for some reason, it is completely ineffective. Beep. Lenny Wilkens had to call another timeout. The deployment of the last timeout obviously did not have any effect. The Bobcats, who originally had a poor offensive routine, suddenly became rich at this moment. You deploy to shrink the inside line, then I will throw three-pointers from the outside. Defense continues to shrink the inside line, don't be affected by the three-pointer they just hit. No one can be killed by shooting. Wang Ke is the biggest threat. But there is a premise, our offense must score. Steven. Stop shooting. Lenny Wilkens knocked on the tactical board several times and yelled at Marbury. Marbury touched his nose and lowered his head. Although he was a little unhappy, in the league's big in front of his old man Lenny Wilkens, Marbury still didn't dare to act rashly or express dissatisfaction. On the other side, the atmosphere on the bench of the Bobcats seemed very harmonious and happy. Wang. You did a great job. Next, just play at your own pace. Bernie Bickerstaff patted Wang Ke's shoulder with a smile, which gave Wang Ke complete freedom on the court. Give the damn ball to Wang Ke. Bernie Bickerstaff suddenly felt that his coaching level had evolved. A burst of laughter. While Wang Ke led the Bobcats to overtake the score, he also let his teammates record different data. It's no longer like before when Wang Ke swung the ball wildly after receiving it, while other players stood and watched the show. After all, the game is a team sport of 5 people. Let teammates participate more in the game, which can enhance their enthusiasm for the game. And then bring more positive feedback. After the timeout, the game continued. What the Knicks didn't expect was that the Bobcats' style of play returned to plan A.B under Wang Ke's choice. In the lead, Wang Ke pulled the game back to the traditional tactics of the Bobcats. It's just right. Before there is enough practice and tacit cooperation, Wang Ke's excessive incarnation of ball-holding core may not be a good thing. Unexpectedly, it can have a miraculous effect. But if you use it too much, it won't have such an effect. Wang Ke did not lose himself in holding the ball to brush assists, but kept calm. At this time, Wang Ke's ball control and organization ability still seemed very raw, and he needed more game experience to temper and grow. The Death 5 of the Warriors in the previous life was not used at the beginning. They still use a high center as a starting point to increase the ability to protect the frame and rebound at the beginning. At the critical moment, the Death 5 will be used to make the final decision. The score was gradually pulled apart by the Bobcats. The Knicks soon found that their defense was completely ineffective. Without double-teaming Wang Ke, the inside line was hammered. Double-teaming Wang Ke used the ball to break the game. In his previous life, Lillard once said, "When my shooting point is far enough, your double team will be ineffective." Therefore, Lillard's ultra-long-range three-pointers are getting farther and farther, and he is more ferocious than Curry when throwing the ball. Curry's ultra-long-range three-pointers are more like the atmosphere is there, throw one. Lillard is forcibly creating opportunities for ultra-long-range shots. You can't double-team Lillard just after halftime. Wang Ke naturally doesn't need to develop ultra-long-range three-pointers now. His height is there, and the three-point line is enough for Wang Ke to break the game. Wang! 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 The shouts from the scene made Wang Ke a little dazed, and he almost thought that this was the home court of the Bobcats. However, it was not, this was the home court of the Knicks. The home fans of the Knicks turned against them again. After entering the fourth quarter, the game had lost suspense. And Wang Ke played a triple-double of 25 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 blocks and 2 steals. This was Wang Ke's first triple-double in his career. And he appeared in Madison Square Garden, known as the Holy Land of Basketball. At this moment, the fans of the Knicks actually felt very honored. The birth of a supergiant was in their home court. I have to admire the brain circuits of the Knicks fans. Therefore, the cheers for Wang Ke at this time were not surprising at all. On the sidelines of the court, Bernie Bickerstaff called a timeout at the right time and replaced Wang Ke, allowing him to accept the cheers of the fans in the audience. Since the opposing fans are so cooperative, there is no reason for Bernie Bickerstaff not to cooperate. Pa! 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 Applause rang out. Wang Ke also waved to the fans in the audience, feeling that this feeling was a bit strange. A few months ago, Wang Ke was in this arena, encountering unfair treatment and ridicule. A few months later, Wang Ke used his performance to convince the extremely picky Knicks fans here. In fact, Wang Ke did not brush assists in this game, but some things are natural. The teammates also felt very novel about Wang Ke's high-position assists and card delivery style, so they became much more active in running without the ball. More cuts bring more opportunities. Wang Ke only needs to pass the ball, it's not very difficult. Awesome. I didn't expect you to get a triple-double so quickly. I thought your triple-double would be points plus rebounds plus blocks. I didn't expect it to be assists. Looking at it this way, I think you're not far from a quadruple-double. Rod Strickland said with a smile, feeling relieved. Wang Ke is also his disciple. As a master, I feel very honored. Rod Strickland himself doesn't feel anything about triple-doubles, he has had them many times. In his peak period, he scored 20 points, 20 assists and 12 rebounds, which was easy. With an unstoppable dribbling breakthrough, it's still easy to get assists. Here we have to mention Stockton, the league's historical assist king. Stockton's explosiveness and speed are average, and breakthroughs are not his strong point. He relies on the most traditional passing organization to lead everyone in the assists list. It's really awesome. And such point guards will be extinct in the future. 91:78. The Bobcats defeated the Knicks in an away game without a single blow. The immediate effect of Wang Ke's new style of play made everyone in the Bobcats excited. The arrival of Rod Strickland also brought a good chemical reaction. He played a short game, about 20 minutes, but he could bring the Bobcats stable control of the ball at critical moments. After returning to the home court, the Bobcats defeated the Pacers and the Supersonics in succession. After Christmas, they won 3 consecutive games. 14 wins and 11 losses. At the arrival of the new year, the Bobcats climbed to the 5th place in the Eastern Conference in the record ranking. Dong. 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 Soon after the game with the Supersonics, the New Year's bell officially rang, and 2005 arrived. Wang Ke had already returned to his home and had a midnight snack with Claudia and Senior. "I'll be back tomorrow. Barton introduced me to a new job, helping out in the supermarket. Don't worry, it's just some light work, there won't be any danger. You two should live well together. Wang. You're getting better and better, I'm happy for you. But don't forget your original intention. Don't let Claudia down." Senior stood up, patted Wang Ke on the shoulder, and went back to the room first. "It should be fine. He can't sit still." Wang Ke hugged Claudia in his arms. "Yeah." Claudia nodded. The two snuggled together and watched the New Year's fireworks outside the window. In Houston, the Rockets defeated the Timberwolves at home, and the record became 15 wins and 15 losses, finally raising the winning rate to 50%. After a difficult run-in at the beginning of the season, the Yao-McGrady combination began to show its power. Yao Ming, who walked out of the stadium at this time, had a little more reverie in his heart. Can he break through the first round of the playoffs this season? In Miami, Wang Zhizhi sat on the bench again for a whole game. But this time, Wang Zhizhi's heart is no longer gloomy. His turning point has appeared. After the season, Wang Zhizhi will return to China with Wang Ke. Li Wei made a promise. If Wang Zhizhi can still get a contract in the U.S. League next season, he can continue to play in the league. If there is no ball to play in the league, he will return to the Dragon League to play. If Wang Zhizhi continues to play in the U.S. League, then he can choose not to participate in other competitions except the Men's Basketball World Championships and the Olympics. In the 2008 Olympics at home, the Dragon team automatically qualified for the competition, so in the Asian Championships and the like, the Dragon team does not need to ensure the championship to qualify for the Olympics. This is a favorable condition that Wang Zhizhi could not imagine before. It can only be said that after seeing Wang Ke's increasingly strong performance, the Basketball Association led by Li Wei has a higher vision and pattern. After the goals that were previously unthinkable became more and more possible, some loopholes naturally loosened up more. 3 years. Finally I can go back. Wang Zhizhi listened to the New Year's bell, as if he had also been reborn. Longwa, on the prairie. Bartle, who specially asked the team for 3 days off, is galloping on the prairie. The rough man who loves life has a new small goal in the new year. He wants to ride a camel in the desert. In the new year, everyone has new fantasies. Episode 47. Did you vote for the All-Stars? I voted for Shaq. He is still the best player in the league in my eyes. I voted for Vince. His dunks are so sexy, I'm really worried that I'll miss them every time I see them. I voted for Tim. Great basic skills, simple and unpretentious. No one of you voted for Wang? Gerald Wallace's voice made the locker room quiet. Yeah. Why didn't we vote for Wang Ke? He definitely deserves an all-star vote. After all, Wang Ke is still a rookie, which makes many players subconsciously forget to vote for Wang Ke. Haha. It's okay. I'll vote for Wang tomorrow. Primoz Brezek's laughter broke the embarrassment in the locker room. If Wang Ke used a punch to break the closet door to establish his prestige at the beginning of the season, now Wang Ke has already conquered everyone with his performance on the court. Especially recently, Wang Ke's change in playing style has allowed more players to get more benefits, and their personal data has increased slightly, which makes his teammates more convinced. Who would not want to play with Wang Ke if they can become better beside him? Damn it. Wang has completely dominated the locker room. I don't have any chance anymore. I'm tired. Give up. Rafael Aluyu seemed particularly depressed at this moment, and even had a feeling of exhaustion. After returning home from training that night, Rafael Aluyu turned on the computer and clicked on the All-Star voting website. Then, he chose a player and clicked the voting button. Rafael Aluyu let out a deep sigh. The player he chose was Wang Ke. In the first game after the new year, the Bobcats are still at home. The Bobcats' recent schedule seems to be very good. On the evening of January 2nd, the Charlotte Arena welcomed the visit of the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers have last season's #1 pick, Little Emperor, James. Dear audience members, dear fans, we meet again. The next broadcast is the game between the Bobcats and the Cavaliers at home. Our Wang Ke is performing better and better. Last month's Rookie of the Month award was also awarded to Wang Ke. In the Longwa broadcast room, Zhang Weiping and Su Kun are ready. Wang Ke's naturalization work has entered the substantive operation. Although there are still 3 years to the next Olympics, time waits for no one. After Wang Ke returns to the Longwa team, it will also take time to run in. Wang Ziji's return is no longer a secret. By then, the Longwa team will have Yao Ming plus Wang Ke plus Wang Ziji plus Bartle plus Yi Jianlian 5 inside players. How the head coach Jonas arranges his troops, how to design new tactical ideas, and how to make choices all require time. It is best to use the World Championships next year to train the troops. The remaining time is not much. It is said that all this will be finalized this summer and all will be done. Zhang Weiping and Su Kun will still feel very excited when they think about this. If Wang Ke and Wang Ziji return to the team smoothly, the overall strength of the Longwa team will be visibly stronger. The future is promising. Recently, Longwa Sports Channel has arranged the broadcast of the Bobcats games, which is not much less than that of the Rockets. After Christmas, the All-Star voting for the season will begin. I believe our fans have already voted a lot for Deo. I am here to vote for Wang Ke, and fans can also vote for Wang Ke. Zhang Weiping said with a smile. These canvassing for votes are incidental, but it is likely to make Wang Ke feel some warmth. The person above mentioned it, and the commentator below did it. However, this mention really made many fans vote for Wang Ke. Although Wang Ke and Yao Ming are both centers, they are in the East and West, so there is no competition for votes, and Longwa fans will not be entangled in voting. On the sports forums on the internet, the topic of naturalizing Wang Ke has long been discussed everywhere. With such obvious official hints, no one is stupid. Although some people have raised doubts, thinking that our team is not pure and relies on naturalized foreigners to achieve results, at this time, as long as someone throws out Wang Ke's photo, the other party will be speechless. Because Wang Ke's appearance looks more like a Longwa than a Longwa person. There are many celebrities in the entertainment industry who have immigrated, and they still use Longwa Ming as their name, star, and still popular with fans. Now there is a pure dragon countryman who is stranded in the United States due to historical reasons. Now he wants to come back, but you won't let him go home? Wang. I voted for you in the All-Star voting. If you make it, remember to treat me to a meal. In the locker room, Rod Strickland came to Wang Ke and swung. All-Star, vote? Wang Ke scratched his head, not remembering that there was such a thing. Yao Ming was selected for the All-Stars in his rookie season, thanks to the large number of Dragon Country fans. I should have no hope. Wang Ke thought about it for a while and didn't care. Whether or not to enter the All-Stars this season is not an important matter. Leading the Bobcats to the playoffs is. Thanks. If you really make it, I'll treat all of you to a meal. Wang Ke said with a smile. Wow. Great. Boss Wang wants to treat us to a meal. There was a cheer in the locker room. The water dispenser managers have all started to call Wang Ke Boss Wang. This big guy is a must-have. Maybe he will get a chance to play? After walking onto the court, Wang Ke looked for James. This was the first time Wang Ke saw James in person. James at this time still looked very immature. Wang Ke knew that 20 years later, James was still in excellent competitive form. And became the league's all-time scoring leader. Then, Wang Ke suddenly discovered that James was younger than himself. James was born in December 1984, while Wang Ke was born in February 1984, almost a year younger. LeBron. Wang Ke took the initiative to go over and say hello. In his previous life, Wang Ke was not a fan of James, but James was a player that Wang Ke could see on the court in both of his lives. All other players who were born in the same period as James have retired. Wang. You are awesome. James showed his kindness to Wang Ke at this time and took the initiative to hug him. Wow. You are so tall. As tall as Yao. James said with a smile. Who knows, the two may have the opportunity to cooperate in the future. James doesn't mind making a move now and making a good relationship. In the future, he will announce that he wants to play brother basketball. At least there must be a reason. If the relationship with Wang Ke is not good, then what's the point of playing brother basketball? You can't hate basketball. James's career plan is very clear and purposeful. The goal of the first stage is naturally to lead the Cavaliers to continue to grow and move forward, and see if there is a chance to win the championship in the end. Winning the championship is naturally the most perfect script. If there is no hope, then you must decisively enter the second stage, making a decision. I will definitely not leave during the 4-year rookie contract period. After the expiration of the rookie contract, he will become a restricted free agent. At this time, no matter how the Cavaliers' record is, it will be difficult to leave. Unless there is a falling out, the Cavaliers will definitely choose to match the contract. So in the previous life, James chose a contract extension with as few years as possible, and only renewed for 3 years. And Anthony and Bosch of the same class signed a second contract for 6 years. Wang Ke admires this very much. Only when you are absolutely confident in your own strength and have a very clear career plan can you make such a renewal choice. James did this very well. Wang Ke thinks this can also serve as a reference for his future career planning. The most unsatisfactory thing for Dragon Country fans in the previous life is that Yao Ming did not go to the Lakers to join forces with Kobe at the end of his rookie contract. Otherwise, he would have easily won the championship, or even started with several championships. But this is impossible to achieve. The Lakers are indeed sincere, and Zen Master and Kobe do want to cooperate with Yao Ming. But when Yao Ming's rookie contract ends, he will be a restricted free agent and cannot leave even if he wants to. Yao Ming is the Rockets' cash cow. Even if the Lakers can offer a sky-high contract, the Rockets will choose to match it. Of course, there will be no sky-high contract. The maximum salary is set by the official league regulations. The time when Yao Ming can really choose to leave the Rockets is exactly when he decides to retire. After the 10-11 season, Yao Ming became a completely free agent. But at that time, he retired. Wang Ke and James chatted for a few more words and then separated. And the game is about to begin. The strength of the Cavaliers this season is still average. Still build the team around James. Last season, he led the Cavaliers to the 9th place in the East, but missed the playoffs by 1 win. This made James somewhat frustrated. Leading the team to the playoffs in the new season was one of James's small goals, but it was not achieved. But his direct competitor Anthony achieved it in the West, which made James a little embarrassed for a while. This season, the Cavaliers' goal is clear, which is to make the playoffs. James can't stand not making the playoffs for 2 consecutive seasons. Speaking of which, the Cavaliers and the Bobcats are still direct competitors for the playoffs. The 2 teams currently have similar records, and the Cavaliers are even better on paper. The Cavaliers starters are Big Z, Drew Gooden, Ira Newbell, Jeff McGinnis, and James. You read it right, James during this period often appeared in the point guard position. Including this all-star voting, James was also classified as guard instead of forward. The Bobcats starters are Wang Ke, Primoz Brezic, Gerald Wallace, Jason Capono, and Brevin Knight. Brevin Knight is still the starter, and Rod Strickland will only play at key points. The game is about to start. Longhua, Hangdian, the crew of the Emperor of Ming Dynasty. Yu Feihong did not have a role this morning, and she was fiddling with the computer in the lounge. It's so troublesome to watch a live broadcast. Huang Xiaoming likes to play basketball, so he should know these. Yu Feihong called Huang Xiaoming over, and after fiddling with the computer, he could finally watch it. It would be convenient to have a TV here, so you can watch it directly on Longhua Sports Channel. It would be a lot more troublesome to watch it on the web. Sister Yu is also interested in basketball. Huang Xiaoming asked curiously. He is 6 years younger than Yu Feihong, and his status is not as good as Yu Feihong's at this time. As early as 5 years ago, Yu Feihong became famous all over the country for her role as the fairy Jinghong in The Flying Dagger of Shao Li. He is my brother. Yu Feihong pointed at Wang Ke on the screen and smiled. Wow. Huang Xiaoming was surprised. Episode 48. Brother? I don't think so. This height difference. Hey. Huang Xiaoming scratched his head. In fact, there is another kind of brother in the circle, but Huang Xiaoming didn't think in that direction. Because after Yu Feihong pointed it out, Huang Xiaoming felt that Wang Ke and Yu Feihong really looked a bit alike. This is obviously a family relationship. Moreover, there is no bad rumor about Yu Feihong in the circle. My aunt's son. Yu Feihong smiled, but didn't pretend to be mysterious. Is that so? Eh? Can you help me get an autograph? He plays basketball so well. I'm already his fan. Huang Xiaoming was immediately excited. He even wanted to take a photo with Wang Ke. Culture and sports are inseparable. But when sports stars reach the highest point, they are still a level higher than entertainment stars. Winning glory for the country is real. Entertainment stars, it is difficult to find a point that brings glory to the country. In the eyes of the public, sports stars are obviously more worthy of pursuit than entertainment stars. The fan circle culture in the entertainment circle is another matter. As a basketball player, playing as a main force in the American League, it is undoubtedly that the entertainment stars of Longhua have established a firm foothold in Hollywood. In terms of rank, Wang Ke is already higher than Huang Xiaoming at this time. Okay. Let him give you a signed basketball. You fans are interested in this. Yu Feihong smiled faintly. Yes. If there is a signed jersey and signed sneakers, it will be even more perfect. Hee hee. Huang Xiaoming has a taste of climbing up the ladder. I'll help you see it then. Yu Feihong smiled and nodded. In another month, this drama will also be completed. By then, it will be close to the Spring Festival of Longhua. Yu Feihong wanted to fly to the United States to meet this cousin. Aunt Yu Rui has a special meaning to Yu Feihong, like a pioneer. Yu Feihong knows that she has not been truly recognized by her parents along the way. Even in the circle at this time, she chose to take a different path. A path that others can hardly understand. 3 years ago, Yu Feihong saw a novel, Ginkgo, Ginkgo. She was deeply immersed in the love story in the novel, and decided to adapt the novel into a movie, Love Has a Next Life. Since then, Yu Feihong's path in the circle has been different. Like a child's play, her choice of taking the script is no longer for her to be more popular, nor for consolidating her own status, but to see if it will help her direct and star in Love Has a Next Life. During this period, there were also big guys in the circle who were willing to invest in this movie. Of course, there would be some other, small requirements, but they were all rejected by Yu Feihong. For Yu Feihong, this is tantamount to choosing to retire when she is at her peak. Resources in the circle began to decrease, and Yu Feihong seemed a little crazy to shoot this Love Has a Next Life. In the previous life, this movie was still shot by Yu Feihong, but such an art film, the box office can be imagined. Lost everything. Yu Feihong lost all her savings over the years. After that, Yu Feihong frequently appeared in various TV dramas and movies that lost their status, and the roles she played were also very unpleasant. It is not wrong to describe Yu Feihong as playing a good hand badly. If she can plan her acting career well and not suffer from literary youth disease, Yu Feihong may be able to reach the level of Zhou Sun and Bingbing. Yu Feihong felt that she was very similar to her aunt at this time. Both of them were fighting against everything. They were not understood, but they never gave up. The game has started. Sister Yu, I'll watch from here, okay? Huang Xiaoming saw that the game had already started and asked. Of course. On the court, Wang Ke won the jump ball as usual at the beginning. Big Z is 2.21 meters tall, not short, but still a little worse than Wang Ke. In addition, his jumping ability is not comparable to Wang Ke's, so it's not surprising that he lost the opening jump ball. Brevin Knight controlled the ball through half-court. Recently, Brevin Knight has also experienced a fluctuating psychological process. He knows that his ability is not enough to be the team's starter, and he is a little worried. Especially after Rod Strickland came to the team, Brevin Knight once thought that his starting position was going to be taken away. However, the good team atmosphere in the Bobcats allowed Brevin Knight to finally adjust. Since there are defects that cannot be made up, do your best. Things. Recently, Wang Ke suggested that he throw more three-pointers in the game, and Brevin Knight also accepted the suggestion and did some extra training every day. If you can play the role of a fixed-point three-point shooter, that's not bad. After Brevin Knight came to the three-point line, he passed the ball to Gerald Wallace. Gerald Wallace observed Wang Ke's position in the interior and prepared to pass the ball in. The Bobcats' three-pronged attack at the beginning did not change. In the interior, Wang Ke leaned against Big Z with his back and reached out for the ball. The Cavaliers naturally would not double-team Wang Ke at the beginning, and were ready to see the effect of Big Z's single defense against Wang Ke. After all, Big Z's height is not much different from Wang Ke, and Wang Ke no longer has an absolute height advantage. However, it is not only height that determines the advantage in the interior, but also tonnage. Big Z is 2.21 meters tall, but his tonnage is only 108 kilograms. This makes him look like a bamboo pole in front of Wang Ke. Bang! Wang Ke's first back collision came, and Big Z made a retching sound. His footsteps retreated 2 steps uncontrollably. Bang! Wang Ke pulled up and slammed the ball. It was a bit relaxing. James subconsciously covered his face. Big Z was hit too hard this time. Can't even hold on for one round? James looked at Wang Ke with a more serious look. This rookie is quite fierce. The Cavaliers attacked. James controlled the ball directly from the backcourt and past half-court. Seeing Brevin Knight in front of him, James smiled. This small body in front of him, isn't it a gift? With a step of his right foot, the bull charge started. Bang! Brevin Knight, who weighed only 78 kilograms, was knocked away by James. Big Z, let me help you play an answer. Ball. Take off. Oh my gosh. After breaking into the 3-second zone, James felt like he hit a wall and bounced back. The basketball in his hand almost fell. At this time, young James was not so thick-skinned, and he did not have the unique skill of 8 steps to chase cicadas. Pa! Wang Ke gave James a blood cap without any courtesy. Wang! 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 The familiar shouts in the Charlotte arena have already sounded. This year's second pick versus last year's first pick. Wang Ke won the first round of the duel. Gerald Wallace turned into a little expert in picking up leaks and picked up the basketball. He did not choose a fast break, but handed the ball to Brevin Knight. The overall rhythm of the Bobcats game is not fast. After all, it is a double tower lineup. Wang Ke can run, but the other tall player Primoz Brezic can't run that fast. James' expression has become extremely serious at this time. He has quickly realized that Wang Ke can perfectly restrain his playing style. Last season, James was suppressed very badly in the 2 matches with Yao Ming. 5 out of 18 once, 7 out of 19 once. Yao Ming blocked James' breakthrough in the interior. That is, the US League has set up the defense 3 seconds rule, otherwise, James' hit rate will become even uglier. And now, Wang Ke's defensive pressure on James is even greater than Yao Ming. The Bobcats are attacking, and Wang Ke continues to turn the tide in the interior, knocking away Big Z again and slamming it. The Cavaliers' interior is in a very embarrassing situation for a while. On the one hand, the Cavaliers need the inside line to become lighter, and it is best to have the ability to shoot from the outside to open up space for James' breakthrough. On the other hand, the Cavaliers need the inside line to withstand the impact of O'Neal, Yao Ming, and now Wang Ke. These two are contradictory things. The Cavaliers attacked, and James passed the ball through half-court. This time, James decided to play it safe and let his teammates attack first. With a ground pass, James sent the ball to Drew Gooden. The reason why he didn't give it to Big Z was because James felt that Wang Ke's defense was a bit strong. He was blocked by Wang Ke, so Big Z was unlikely to be able to play. However, Drew Gooden didn't play when facing Primoz Brezic's defense. Primoz Brezic has a comprehensive advantage in height and tonnage. After learning a trick from Wang Ke, Primoz Brezic rarely jumps in defense. The height of 2.18 meters is enough to cover most players. Bang! Drew Gooden made a hook shot, but it didn't go in. Wang Ke jumped up, easy rebound. The Cavaliers' offense is in big trouble. This season, the Bobcats' defense, led by Wang Ke, has always been above the league's average. The 2 towers make the Bobcats' interior defense very strong. The defensive loophole appears on the outside. However, as long as the opponent's mid-range and long-range shooting rate is not ridiculously high, the Bobcats' defense can maintain a high level. Because the Bobcats players are very active in defense. Loopholes like Brevin Knight are entirely a matter of physical talent, not a matter of defensive attitude. The Bobcats' problem before was on the offensive end, and Wang Ke was GG as soon as he was double-teamed. Now with Wang Ke's evolution on the offensive end, the Bobcats' offensive problems have been greatly alleviated. Bobcats attack. Wang Ke dunks another one in the interior. 6 o'clock. Wang Ke stayed at the beginning was very hot. Big Z was completely unable to restrict Wang Ke in the interior. James put his hands on his hips and shook his head. He looked at his teammates, then at Wang Ke's teammates. Where is the gap? James fell into thought. Episode 49. Oh my god. This slam dunk. Domineering. I'm rough. I'm rough. I'm rough. He got blocked again. The little emperor is going to be beaten today. Sister Yu, I'm sorry, I'm too excited. In the lounge, Huang Xiaoming felt like his blood was boiling. Wang Ke played too hard in this game. In the consecutive head-to-head matches with James, Wang Ke won. At this time, it was really easy for Wang Ke to defend the 1.0 version of James. James has been able to maintain his form for more than 20 years, and he has been evolving. Although the footwork has always been unclear, it cannot be denied that he is awesome. Of course, James at this time, there are not so many ways to deal with it. It's okay. Do you guys watch the game like this? Also, who is the little emperor? Is there a foreigner with such a name? Yu Feihong smiled faintly, feeling quite novel. Huang Xiaoming seemed very quiet most of the time in the crew before. He is very polite to people. Yes. When I meet the team I support, I will be more excited to watch the game. Oh. Little Emperor is the nickname of James on the opposite team. Wang Ke also has a nickname, called Destroyer. Today, Destroyer is going to destroy Little Emperor. Hey. Huang Xiaoming scratched his head and said with a smile. Puff. Yu Feihong smiled. The nickname, Destroyer, is quite domineering. Outside the lounge, some discussion sounded. Could they be? TSK. I thought she was a pure goddess. Is this a story about an old woman and a young man? Old cow eating tender grass. Puff. Such discussions are common in all crews, and Yu Feihong smiled indifferently. He is really watching the game here. And in some places, some people are really reading the script at night. So, don't blame most of the crew for making up stories. Hoochie. On the side of the court, on the bench of the Cavaliers, James was breathing heavily. James played the entire first quarter, and his energy consumption was quite large. 0 out of 5 shots, scored 4 points by free throws, plus 4 turnovers. Such a performance made the expression on James' face at this time look particularly solemn. This game was a bit ugly. After discovering that his teammates' singles were a bit lame, James had to continue to release the breakthrough and score big moves again. This method that was always successful in the past games was completely ineffective under the inside line guarded by Wang Ke. To be fair, James's finishing rate at the basket is very high. In the past, after breaking through to the basket, the opponent could not defend James with only a center to help defend. Then, the opponent must shrink the inside line, and James changed the opponent's defense by breaking through, and the pass became threatening. This point is similar to Wang Ke's new style of holding the ball near the three-point line. But it doesn't work now. Wang Ke perfectly defended James alone, and when James tried to pass the ball to the open Big Z, Wang Ke was able to quickly return to defense. Such a fast pace really leaves no loopholes for James to exploit. 30:19. After the first quarter, the Bobcats were already 11 points ahead of the Cavaliers. This game looks a bit easy again. Defense. We must increase our defensive intensity. In addition, we must bravely break through. Challenge Wang Ke. Even if we can't score, we can still cause damage. At this point, the Cavaliers' head coach Paul Silas looked at James meaningfully. James has been strongly supported by Nike since he entered the league. Nike told everyone openly that they were betting on James with a huge contract of 90 million renminbi for 7 years. Just like betting on Jordan back then. On the other hand, Wang Ke has not signed with any sneaker brand so far. With Wang Ke's strong performance, big brands such as Nike and Audi have made offers. But the price cut was too obvious, so Wang Ke put aside the negotiations in this regard. In this case, James naturally has an advantage in terms of whistle care. In the first quarter, Wang Ke was called for a foul after a precise block. It's just that Wang Ke's defense was too clean, so the referee couldn't find too many opportunities. But if the next game, why did he catch Wang Ke fouling during the game? If he does it more often, he will always create opportunities for the referee. Once Wang Ke is affected by the foul and has to sit back on the sidelines, the Cavaliers' chance will come. At the beginning of the second quarter, both teams replaced their substitutes. Wang Ke and James both sat off the court to rest. The Cavaliers' substitutes seemed to be stronger than the Bobcats players. After playing for 2 minutes, the Cavaliers have narrowed the gap to within 5 points. The main force widens the gap. The substitutes come on the court to dig a hole. The main force comes back to fill the hole. This has become the norm for the Bobcats games. At the beginning, Wang Ke was eager to play to change the situation. Now, he can sit back and relax. This is part of the game. It is impossible for Wang Ke to play 48 minutes in every game. You can do this in the playoffs, but it is really unnecessary in the regular season. Wang Ke is not without injury risks at this time. The average playing time per game reached 39.1 minutes. Off the court, Wang Ke has also been practicing at a high intensity. Crazy training makes you stronger. The premise is crazy training. And the 2 bullet holes on Wang Ke's right shoulder would feel quite painful from time to time during the fierce game. During this period of time, as long as the substitute lineup can give some strength, the Bobcats can basically win the game steadily. After a dead ball, the Cavaliers chose to replace James in advance, which was to take the opportunity to wipe out the score difference and overtake the score in one fell swoop. Bernie Bickerstaff glanced at the timer and was not in a hurry to replace Wang Ke. The second quarter had just passed more than 2 minutes. The beginning of the second quarter and the end of the third quarter were Wang Ke's only 2 rest opportunities. In the first and fourth quarters, Wang Ke would normally play the entire quarter. This is a better rotation method that Bernie Bickerstaff has found. After James came on the court, the Cavaliers' momentum to chase points has undoubtedly become more fierce. In the absence of Wang Ke, James felt that he was good again. Continuous bull collisions. Raphael Aluyu, who came off the bench, was tortured to death. With almost the same impact method, James could end with a dunk when facing Raphael Aluyu's defense. But when facing Wang Ke, it often ended in failure. Such a direct comparison made everyone see the gap between Raphael Aluyu and Wang Ke at a glance. Bang! James attacked the inside again, directly riding on Raphael Aluyu's neck, and swung the ball into the basket fiercely. Fuck! Raphael Aluyu lost his balance and fell to the ground after landing. After James dunked, he deliberately stretched on the basket, and then after landing, he looked at Raphael Aluyu, who was lying on the ground, and stepped over his head. This scene was a bit like Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue in the finals. Such an action has a taste of humiliation. James is also releasing the depressed emotions that Wang Ke had caused him before. However, as a water dispenser manager, Raphael Aluyu does not have as good a temper as Tyronn Lue. Various emotions mixed together, causing Raphael Aluyu's fragile little heart to collapse at this moment. Ouch, I'm so crazy. Raphael Aluyu got up and pushed James from behind. This was like poking a hornet's nest, and the Cavaliers players rushed over frantically. James is the darling of the team management. The last player who had some opinions about James, Ricky Davis, was directly traded by the team. You know, Ricky Davis was the boss of the Cavaliers before James came to the team. Due to the position problem, Raphael Aluyu was surrounded by the Cavaliers players. The Bobcats players are still a little too young, and when they suddenly encountered such a conflict on the court, they were a little confused for a while. On the bench, Rod Strickland had already stood up and was ready to rush forward to help. As the only veteran in the team, he knew that he had to protect the young players. But at this moment, a huge figure was one step faster than him and rushed onto the court in one step. Wang. Don't be impulsive. Rod Strickland shouted at Wang Ke. He never expected that Wang Ke would rush onto the court at the first moment of the conflict. This is not a good choice. Because Wang Ke's behavior will result in a technical foul and suspension for the next game. As the core of the team, it's too rash to do so. This is a loss-making thing. After all, Raphael Aluyu is just a second-round pick and a water dispenser manager. The atmosphere of the Bobcats is indeed good, but when it comes to a specific person, there will be different treatments after all. On the court, Raphael Aluyu, who was surrounded by people, felt a little flustered. He has always been impulsive, but he is not good at it at all. Commonly known as being both a rookie and a playful person. Where are my teammates? Have you abandoned me? Why are there only Cavaliers players around? Rafael Aluyu was so disheartened at this moment that his whole body was shaking. Anderson Varejao, the rookie center of the Cavaliers, seized the opportunity to perform in front of James and punched Rafael Aluyu. Although such behavior will bring some troubles, fines and suspensions. But as long as you can take credit in front of James and hold the thigh of my emperor, everything will be fine. He is just a second-round pick, and he needs to take a risk to have a chance. He wants to become the first sword-bearing guard in front of the emperor. Rafael Aluyu felt a fist shadow in his pupils constantly expanding. At this moment, Rafael Aluyu flashed back to a scene in his mind. It was before entering the league. In a business game in Charlotte, he punched high school student Curry. At that time, a big hand clamped his arm tightly. That giant helped Curry. Will someone come to help him this time? Rafael Aluyu smiled bitterly in his heart. Pa! Anderson Varejao's fist could not move forward any further. The figure of the giant appeared again. It's not good to beat people in my place. Wang Ke's voice sounded. Episode 50. Rafael Aluyu stared at everything in front of him, trying to understand what was going on. He still understood some basic rules. For example, when the game is in progress, walking into the court from the bench is severely punished by the league officials and requires a one-game suspension. For example, the core of the team should be protected when there is a conflict on the court, and the water dispenser managers should play their role. Rafael Aluyu is the water dispenser manager, and Wang Ke is the core of the team. Now, Wang Ke rushed onto the court from the bench and stood up for him. It is difficult to tell what Rafael Aluyu felt at this moment. In particular, Rafael Aluyu always thought that he and Wang Ke were in a hostile state. It was just that at a certain moment, Rafael Aluyu had an impulse of, a man dies for his friend, in his heart. Anderson Varejao felt the pain in his arm, and at this time he was already scared. Wang Ke stood in front of Rafael Aluyu and separated all the Cavaliers players. Frightened by Wang Ke's momentum, no one dared to move forward. At this moment, the evil spirit emanating from Wang Ke even made the Cavaliers players feel bloody. The referee finally came and separated the players. At the same time, he gave Wang Ke and Rafael Aluyu a technical foul respectively. On the contrary, James did not receive any whistle. After being pushed by Rafael Aluyu, James was originally ready to step forward to join the team. After seeing Wang Ke's figure, he decisively chose to stand behind and watch the show. Protect our core. The Cavaliers players did a very good job in this regard. After the conflict, the game continued. Wang Ke sat back on the bench, and Rafael Aluyu was also replaced. His mentality was not suitable for continuing the game. Wang Ke can continue to play, but he will definitely be suspended for the next game. Wang, you are a little impulsive. Head coach Bernie Bickerstaff came over and said to Wang Ke, then looked at Rafael Aluyu, and some words were not said. It's not worth it to be a water dispenser manager. Coach. This is our home court. I am the core of the team. As long as it is the team's business, no matter what aspect, I will take on the responsibility of the team leader. Wang Ke smiled faintly. So far, Wang Ke likes and cherishes the Bobcats team very much. Since many people recognize him as the team leader, Wang Ke must act like the team leader. In the previous life, post-Kobe era, of the Lakers, Nick Young faced the Suns players 1 versus 5, which is vivid. Nick Young has been chilled since then and has no fighting spirit. And the other players of the Lakers are not much better, and the people's hearts are all scattered. That period was also the darkest period for the Lakers, and there was no hope. Wang Ke naturally didn't want such a situation to happen in the Bobcats. The Bobcats, a newly established team, did not have a solid foundation. It would not be surprising if some small fluctuations led to the team's collapse. Wang Ke was constantly improving the team's cohesion in his own way. As for being suspended for the next game, it really wasn't that important. This is just the regular season. Wang. You're right. I believe that everyone in the team will fight for a team leader like you. Bernie Bickerstaff thought about it and laughed. Take another 2 minutes to rest and get ready to play. Bernie Bickerstaff patted Wang Ke on the shoulder and said nothing more. If Wang Ke can't play in the next game, he can lose strategically. Then this game must be won. Will there be fights on the basketball court? Yu Feihong was still a little surprised when she saw the scene just now. When playing basketball, it's normal to have some movements. There was a fight in a game before the season. The fans were beaten. It's better now. 10 years ago, if there were no fights in the league, it would be unworthy of the title of Iron Blood. Hey. Men always have an inexplicable excitement about conflicts and fights on the court. Huang Xiaoming remembered the previous fight at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Then he remembered some rumors about Wang Ke. As a true fan of Wang Ke, Huang Xiaoming still knows a lot about Wang Ke's news. It seems that playing basketball is also very risky. I'm a little worried about my brother. Yu Feihong frowned. She had thought that playing basketball was just pure playing, and there would be frequent fights. Is this the reason why the second master disagreed with his aunt playing basketball? Ahem. Wang Ke doesn't need to worry. His opponent is more worried. Huang Xiaoming scratched his head again and glanced at Yu Feihong subconsciously. Doesn't she know her brother? Rumor has it that Wang Ke held a machete and chopped from the bar box to the door of the bar, and there was a river of blood. Who dares to provoke this evil star on the court? There are only wrong names, but no wrong nicknames. The title, Destroyer, is not a joke. If you dare to provoke me on the court, I will destroy you outside the court. Karen Butler must have experienced this, and he has not been able to return from injury until now. The Lakers' record also began to plummet, and the hope of the playoffs is becoming increasingly slim. Kobe is going crazy. O'Neal led the Heat to the top of the Eastern Conference. Kobe led the Lakers to a rapid dive, and they were almost heading for the last place in the Western Conference. Every superstar needs helpers, and Jordan and Kobe are no exception. 1 against 5 may win a game, but it is impossible to win a season. Huang Xiaoming felt that other players with so-called gang backgrounds were weak compared to Wang Ke. 5 minutes into the second quarter, Wang Ke came on the court again. Wang. 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 Good job. Wang. Kill them. The audience was filled with waves of voices. Wang Ke's performance in the conflict a few minutes ago was so manly. He did what a team leader should do. Wang Ke satisfied all the fans' fantasies about the team leader. And when Wang Ke stood on the court again, the other players of the Bobcats also felt refreshed. It was as if they were covered with a layer of motivational buff. This boss can follow, he really goes up when there is something going on. Then, attack. Wang Ke blew the horn of the Bobcats' counterattack with an inside slam dunk. The torrent quickly submerged every player of the Cavaliers. This also includes the King, James. The spirit of the Bobcats has been improved again in this game. If Wang Ke was the strongest player in the Bobcats before, then now Wang Ke has evolved into the spiritual leader of the team. This is actually a very perfect state. Some team leaders are often not leaders in the locker room. This will cause rifts in the team at some point. In the Longhua broadcast room, Su Kun talked freely. As a commentator, the important thing is to be able to blow. Later on, the important thing is to be able to grab traffic. Professionalism and the like are not that important. In fact, when the conflict occurred, I was really worried about Wang Ke. After all, conflicts on the court will have negative effects. But we also have to say that conflicts and fights on the court are part of the game. Fighting is wrong, but we can't be cowardly. Our Longhua team may not be able to beat others in the game, but we have never lost in a fight. Li Nan's military boxing is very powerful. The young player Zhu Fengyu who came up recently, the Zhu 8 punch is also good. Zheng Weiping is a little excited. Coach Zhang. Is this what we can say? Su Kun was sweating coldly while listening to the side. He really hoped that the director would say, cut this part. 99:80. At the moment the game ended, the score difference had widened to nearly 20 points. After experiencing the conflict on the court, the referee was not very good at targeting Wang Ke. After all, this is the home court of the Bobcats. The conflict made the Bobcats players and fans feel like they share the same hatred. If the whistle is blown at this time, there will be a risk of something going wrong. When James was strangled by Wang Ke, the Cavaliers' defeat became a matter of course. James was substituted out with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Because the game was hopeless and became garbage time. In this game, James made 5 of 17 shots and 7 of 9 free throws, scoring 17 points, 5 rebounds and 5 assists. If you don't look at the hit rate, such data is not too bad. After James sat on the bench, he said nothing. His psychological quality is very strong and will not fluctuate too much because of a loss in a game. James is just analyzing the situation in the East. The West is strong and the East is weak is the basic pattern of the league. Such a pattern is even it lasted until 20 years later. The inside line of the Eastern teams is generally weak. Because before this season, O'Neal was in the West. Only Western teams need to consider hoarding meat shield centers to fight against O'Neal. After O'Neal, it depends on Yao Ming, and Yao Ming is also in the West. So last season, even if James was pressed to the ground and rubbed against Yao Ming, he didn't have any waves in his heart. Because the two can't touch each other in the playoffs. James is confident that he can lead the Cavaliers to the finals in the future. But he doesn't think Yao Ming can do it. The competition in the West is still extremely fierce. The probability of both of them reaching the finals at the same time is too low. So there is no need to consider the problem of playing against Yao Ming. This season, O'Neal traveled to the East, and James paid a little more attention. But it is an indisputable fact that O'Neal is at the end of his peak and is about to go downhill. In the next 2 seasons, James will still not be involved in direct competition with O'Neal. The Cavaliers' goal for the next 2 seasons is to steadily enter the playoffs, not to compete for the championship. When James grows up, O'Neal will be too old to be a threat. James is clear and pragmatic about every goal of his career. There will be no unrealistic fantasies. But now the problem has arisen. Wang Ke is the same age as James, and they are both in the East. In terms of style, he is extremely restrained against James. This is definitely a lifelong enemy. What can I do? If I am always suppressed by Wang Ke in the East, wouldn't I be able to replicate Ewing's tragedy? Ewing has always been on the front line against Jordan in the East. Every time he was eliminated by Jordan and went home. He was finally called the uncrowned king. James can't accept this. He is on the road to GOAT. The team should pay attention to this matter. After the game, James looked at Wang Ke deeply and walked back to the player channel quickly. At this time, James no longer had the heart to greet Wang Ke. Oh yeah. The destroyer destroyed Little Emperor. In the lounge, Huang Xiaoming cheered. He looked a little immature and childish at this time. No matter how old a man is, he has a middle school heart. Yu Feihong smiled and shook her head. Her cousin looked really good. He didn't seem to be alone over there. Yu Feihong looked at Wang Ke, who was surrounded by his teammates on the screen, and didn't know whether she should go over to see him. Let's go. It's not easy for him to be alone outside. Yu Feihong remembered the hard time her aunt had at that time, but at that time, she had just graduated and couldn't give her aunt any help. Yu Feihong's mood was a little erratic, and she remembered her difficult movie, Love Has a Next Life.